have a look at the heritage approach of craft. I think it's important to first go back to the turn of the 21st century, globalization, a migration, a digital revolution, mainstream culture, marketed culture entered into the heritage approach. The 20th century, the concepts of folklore, traditional culture, popular culture entered into a heritage discourse. So with the 2003 convention, this heritage approach has been entering. More and more, this concept of ICH, or intangible cultural heritage, is shifting towards the concept of living heritage in practice, also in the professional field and in the international field. The object-oriented approach in the 20th century was very much related to the UNESCO standard-setting work on World Heritage, the world-famous World Heritage Convention of 1972. The symbolic attack of heritage had been a driver to work on protecting heritage, because it's unique, because it's authentic, because it has an outstanding universal value. The new era that is coming with the 2003 convention, we start speaking about the diversity of heritage and also cherish this diversity, which brings an approach of equity instead of exclusivity and unicity as an approach. It focuses on the living and dynamic dimensions and these communities' concerned values instead of experts deciding whether it has an outstanding universal value. Crafts is part of this. One of the things that has been defined in the UNESCO 2003 convention is to make it more, let's say, tangible or concrete by proposing several domains of living heritage by which you can understand where all these practices of living heritage exist. It's not craftsmanship, it's traditional craftsmanship that has been highlighted as a domain, which may be an issue for discussion and which maybe also shows that at the time of writing the convention, we were still trying to find the bridge between the traditional approach of the 20th century and then maybe what we would be writing today. I'm not sure about that. The heritage itself is in one sentence immediately linked to the people that practice and embody it or cherish it. And that recognize it as their cultural heritage, which then continues to go to the way these people transmit it from generation to generation, recreating it in relation to the whole context, their environment, the interaction with the natural context, their own history, and which brings them a sense of identity and continuity. And then it's immediately linked again to respect for cultural diversity and human creativity. Crafts has gone through such a changing context in the 20th and the 21st century. And one of the things to address is how, as an individual practicing a craft, they can relate to other individuals, to groups, to communities, or communities of practice on crafts in a different way than in a historical sense has been the case. Being in a globalized world today, or at least in a connected world, where also giving these futures to crafts can change and can be developed in totally different ways than it could be in the past. Let's say that what we traditionally experience as heritage communities in the European context may be completely different today. Having all kinds of hybrids or virtual communities or spread communities. They need not be in the same territory or they need not be in the same place to be a heritage community anymore. What we have seen in the evolution of the convention in the past few years, certainly in the last 5-6 years, is that there's more and more coming a multi-stakeholder approach. Safeguarding, let's have a look at what this concept brings in the convention. Again, we have a look at the first articles of the convention, and then we see that safeguarding means measures aimed at ensuring the viability. How to take care of a heritage that is not tangible or not in its primary sense, and that is embodied by people, and so a living heritage. So the focus on viability is core. That is the notion of sustainable development, which is present in the context of the convention. When we look at this concept today, it's being linked immediately to cultural diversity. If you look at crafts or crafts heritage, it's quite easy to link it to each of the SDGs. Cultural diversity It's like resources that, as human beings living in many different natural contexts, social contexts, ways of living together with our planet, but also with each other as human beings. Living heritage is one of the resources that we are embodying as people ourselves, and which brings us strength in an inspired way, addresses the many challenges that we are going through as a society. It's interesting to focus on this international dimension of heritage safeguarding within the UNESCO Convention approach. For craft, it has brought a kind of global visibility, and also this transnational global visibility. Crafts being quite easy entrance to sustainable development, to regional identities, to the whole green agenda. Comes up as one of those fields where policies and investment are being led to. In Flemish, we often use a more broad approach of craftsmanship. So like the craftsmanship that is present in the several domains of ICH, to like the skillfulness that people develop, and how this can be often also be a need to have a master to pupil or an apprenticeship approach to really have a deep knowledge and develop a deep transmission of knowledge from one to the other, whether it's from generation to generation. I think a lot has been shifting there. We're not very much looking from older to younger or from master to pupil. It's more and more like learning together. Local pilot, Handmade in Bruges, our NGO had its roots in the city of Bruges, which is a World Heritage City, which was really suffering from over-tourism already in the 90s, and where one of the things local population was resisting was often seen as not a living city anymore. The people that actually are behind this, which are very much the craftspeople, suffered because real estates were really getting too expensive. The market was pushing them out of the city and so on. And inspired by the UNESCO Convention, we then started from the NGO to set a pilot, but already having in focus that we wanted to have like a long-term and sustainable approach where we wanted to engage the city council in safeguarding also the crafts and to develop this as a policy part of the local policies. So Handmade in Brugge was really focusing on how you can have a more sustainable city through focusing also on this living heritage. All the more in a city that is very much vibrant through its heritage. It started with a lab, Design with Root, focusing on innovation and design, inspired by craftsmanship and how we could foster this, but there were not at all financial means at that time for living heritage, so we needed another approach, and we worked through the urban development approach and started to work in cities and streets that were suffering from empty windows, empty shops. It is now a community of more than 100 makers working with a label that is very closely connected also to the UNESCO approach of living heritage and crafts. And you see also through the years that it's shifting more and more to the new needs that are there, new societal challenges of sustainable development, of innovation, and so on. The people that are behind it today, it's embedded now in a structural way. They create actually these kind of spaces where the craftspeople that are often trying to survive get these kind of possibilities to do these pilots and experiments together. So it brings them these extra spaces. Very much a networked environment. This convention is a standard-setting framework. Heritage safeguarding can be inspired by it in many ways, but it's very much a tool you can mobilize in a transnational way, which certainly for craft it can connect the nodes and bring together many of the things that before maybe happened in a more isolated way. And when using this framework, you can really strengthen each other and get much further.